People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. See, following our competition results with no authenticity, no innovation, no competitive advantage, and we're always playing catch up.
All the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it.
There's the things that you say with words, and there's the things that you say without words. Both of those are message. I mean, message is not just what you say. If you show up to a business meeting in shorts and a tank top, you're sending a message.
Start With Why is now the third most watched TED Talk of all time with over 60 million views. It carries a simple yet profound message and persuades us to discover our why, which is the core value that drives us to get up in the morning and go to work. Start With Why, simply put, means people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Now, Sinek doesn't just leave you with this thought, he also drops some great advice. First, define and communicate your primary goal. Then use stories to share that purpose with the world. Sinek says all great leaders are also great storytellers, and you can reinforce commitment by creating a sense of unity and belonging. Then create trust by demonstrating authenticity and leading with empathy. Start With Why then teaches you how to find your golden circle. Picture 3 bands, with the outer band saying the what. This is the outermost circle representing tangible things and outcomes that an organization produces. It answers the basic question, what does this organization do? Now, closer to the middle, you have the middle band, which is the how, and this is the middle circle representing specific processes and addresses the question, how does the organization fulfill its purpose? Now, in the center, you have your why, and this is where most organizations stop. They don't really get it. This is the innermost circle representing the core purpose that inspires the organization's existence. It answers the question, why does this organization exist beyond just making a profit? These are the deeper values and beliefs that drive actions. So next, Sinek teaches us to follow our why and not our competition. See, following our competition results with no authenticity, no innovation, no competitive advantage, and we're always playing catch up. So let me introduce you to Simon Sinek as he describes how to start with why.
All the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist?
Now, certainly I encourage you to watch the full video and then read the book. It may be a major breakthrough for you as an entrepreneur, but now I want you to also think about start with why when it comes to politics. You see, most politicians have an idea of what are some of the things they believe, but not all. And many know how to defend or act on these beliefs, but not all. But very few, however, know why. And those political leaders that do know why are the ones that lead others. Our guest today is a best-selling author, a member of the Speakers Hall of Fame, and he's coordinated recent events with key figures such as Donald Trump and many other top political and business leaders in the United States. He just completed his 25th book titled The Coming American Revival. Welcome, Chris Widener, as he joins the Constitutional Entrepreneur. Well, Chris, thanks for being on the show, my friend. Really appreciate you taking some time to join us today. And it's always exciting to hear your opinions and your thoughts about a number of different things. I always am entertained, but always learn some things at the same time. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Well, listen, man, let's jump right into it. For those that don't know your background, I will ask you maybe share a little bit, but I see you as a coach. You've now authored your 25th book. We'll be talking about that later on in the interview. And one of the things that I have gleaned from you, I've known you for a couple of decades now, is you help people, even with one of the early books that I first read of yours, The Angel Inside, was, I think, the first piece of work that I read from you. And that became a number one best-selling book and sold lots and lots of copies. But finding clarity of message, that's really the topic I want to dig in today, because lots of entrepreneurs, lots of business people, lots of politicians have difficulty finding clarity of message. What is it that they want to drive their brand with? And so I'd like to, before we go there, I'm going to come back to it in just a second. Give our audience a little bit of your backstory that led you up to now the guy that's done some of the things that you've done.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a great message, clarity of message. I mean, it's a good thing for us to be talking about. Angel Inside is still my favorite book that I ever wrote. It's been in 14 languages. But the book that I've probably given my last 1,000 speeches on is called The Art of Influence, Persuading Others Begins With You, is the subtitle. And I've been in 3 industries in my career, all of which depend on clarity of message. The first one, I was a pastor for 14 years. And you have to have clarity of message. You have to know what you're talking about. The nice thing is, as a pastor, is you have the message and you're really kind of just reiterating it to people. Being a pastor, you're not making up your own message. You're taking the message and you're making it clear to people. So clarity of message is very important for pastors. But secondly, in 2002, I started writing and speaking full time. And left being a pastor of a local church, started writing and speaking full time. That career went very quickly. I ended up from 2002 to 2009, I ended up working with John Maxwell for a couple of years. I had a TV show with Zig Ziglar for a couple of years. And then I spent 7 years working with a guy named Jim Rohn, who gave Tony Robbins his first job and is sort of legendary in that industry. So ended up in the Motivational Speakers Hall of Fame, named one of the top 10 sales speakers by Success Magazine in America, all of which depends on clarity of message. And then lastly, I've been involved in the political world. I got involved in the political world when I was asked by my best friend, who was running for governor of the state of Washington in 2004, to help him with his speeches. He said, you're the speaker. I'm the politician. I'm running for governor. I'd like you to help me. So I spent 3-4 days a week on that campaign. If you want to find out more about that campaign, it was interesting. It's the closest governor's election in U.S. history. He won the race. Then he won the recount. Then he lost the second and final recount, 129 votes out of 3 million votes cast. And that ended up helping me get known. So I ended up I've helped people with their communications, running for president, running for Congress, running for Senate, all those kinds of things. And so I've been involved in the political world the last 10 years. Well, I ran for the U.S. Senate in 2010. I now call it my ill-fated run for the U.S. Senate in 2010, but been very involved in politics. But when you think about it, it all revolves around, it's just different industries, different messages, but it all revolves around clarity of message.
Yep. Well, man, that's a lot to unpack there. But let's jump in. We've got this. The name of the show is The Constitutional Entrepreneur. So we're talking about business. I do want to talk about political things, and I think we can talk about both of them on the show. But let's speak to some entrepreneurs listening to this that maybe are trying to figure out their messaging. Maybe they're trying to come up with that clarity. You've been a coach for a lot of years. Let's specifically speak to entrepreneurs now. Why is it so important to have that clarity? What's the impact that it'll have if they currently don't have it and they get it? Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Absolutely. One book that I recommend It's in the top 3 books I've ever recommended. I would love, when I get to heaven, they always say, well, what questions you can ask God? And you got all these philosophical questions. I want to ask, how many books am I responsible for selling of these other people's books? Because I mention these books all the time. And it's a book called Positioning. It was written by Jack Trout and Al Ries, Ries. It was written about 40 years ago. Jack Trout wrote an updated version called Repositioning, but about the first 2/3 of it is a recap of the original book, Positioning. So positioning is really about clarity of message. It's positioning you in the marketplace. So let me give you an example. It's the middle of the day, and you see a leak in your faucet or your bathroom or something like that, and you don't have much money, kind of a poor person, right? You go to your search engine and you're going to type in a certain term. So you see a leak in your house, and you go, okay, I got to get this fixed. You go, you don't have much money. You go, and what do you suppose you type in? Most people who are poor are going to type in cheap plumbers, or they're going to type in inexpensive plumbers. Okay. If you're a rich person and you're in your big fancy house and you see a leak in your deal, you also are going to go to your search engine, but you're not going to type in cheap plumbers. You're going to type in the best plumbers, right? Because you can afford that. Mm-hmm. Now, imagine it's 2 a.m. and you get up to go to the bathroom and you hear a sound, you walk out your kitchen and there's water coming out of your faucet. You are not going, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. You're not going to type in cheap plumbers. You're not going to type in the best plumbers. You're going to type in emergency plumbers. Okay. And I think that that's a really good way for us to understand how you are messaging and how you are positioning yourself in the marketplace. Are you the cheap plumber? Are you the best plumber? Or are you the emergency plumber? And you know who makes the most money of all those? Not the best plumber, the emergency plumber. Because he's the one willing to get up at 2 a.m. and haul his cookies down to your house and fix that faucet.
Well, and he can add the one liner that says emergency fee.
Yeah, exactly. And you're starting out paying $250 just for the guy to get out of bed,
and you're happy,
and you're happy to do it because it's cheaper than replacing the floors in your kitchen. It's pay this guy $250 to come down here at 2 a.m. or drop $2,500 on new flooring. So that's just a simple example of how your message has to be on point to position you in the marketplace, right? And you could use in the book Positioning, again, it was written 40 years ago, but if somebody, one of the examples they give is car rentals. And of course, 40 years ago, Hertz rental car was, it was considered the great one. And still to this day, Hertz has a sort of a higher end, more professional sort of position in the marketplace. But they would say, if somebody said to you, who's the best car rental? Almost everybody would have said Hertz. But if you say, who's the cheapest car rental? Nobody would have said Hertz. They'd say Budget or Dollar or something. So the message, the brand, the positioning, it's all about developing clarity so that the other person knows who you are. Now, somebody might say, well, wait a minute. If somebody's looking for the best plumber, but I'm listed as the cheap plumber, then I'm not going to get, well, you're right. That's not your market. You can't serve everybody. Your message is about defining your market. Who are you for? An Indian restaurant. I don't like Indian food, curry and stuff, right? But if the Indian restaurant had a message that says, we make Indian food, I'm probably never going to go unless a friend really wants to go or something, because I'm not really into Indian food. What if they said, we make Indian food, but we've also got pizza and ice cream and burgers I wouldn't go there either. Because it's probably not a very good Indian food restaurant if they have to serve burgers and pizza and everything else to get people to come there. They are an Indian restaurant. That's what they sell. I'm not their customer. But you could drive by some of these Indian restaurants and man, they got people lined up out the doors because they're great restaurants. I'm just not the guy for them and they don't care about me. Plenty of other people who like Indian restaurants.
Let's take this right now and transition over into some political things because they really do intertwine. It's all about principles. I believe our country was founded on entrepreneurial principles, and the more we deviate from that, the more problems we seem to have with where we're going. And you and I both have political backgrounds. You ran for U.S. Senate. I supported that race, and many others did as well. And then you've gone on to do other things and help a lot of other people. You've been on stage. I've seen you put together big events, some of which Donald Trump was a headliner at.
Yep.
You did that several times through the years. And so you have definitely been involved. I'm currently serving in the House of Representatives in Florida. So I'm involved, and you and I get to talk. You're one of those guys that get to pick up the phone. We touch base every once in a while on this. But let's now talk about the recent conventions here in the United States. The most recent was the Democrat National Convention, and the DNC, the RNC was just a few weeks earlier than that. And there's certainly we can look at it from picking apart speeches and all that, but I want to look at it from clarity of message. Look at it from, let's take a bird's eye view of kind of a snapshot of what your thoughts are right now on just the convention standpoint, not necessarily the candidate, but what took place at these events, and how would you think about them from a standpoint of, did the parties do a good job of providing clarity of message? So let's just talk about it.
Yeah. Well, so the first thing I'll say is I'm completely biased. Okay. I'm not even slightly biased. I'm completely biased. So, but I know that I'm biased, but I'm also, and Ryan, this is one of the reasons why I think you and I are friends, is we're both also honest. I can say, here's what we did wrong. Here's what they did right. I can concede a point, and those kinds of things. But I'll give you sort of my overarching there. And I'll lay one other thing. There's the things that you say with words, and there's the things that you say without words. Both of those are message. I mean, message is not just what you say. If you show up to a business meeting in shorts and a tank top, you're sending a message. This is not important to me. There's ways to send a message. So anyway, let's talk about the message. Let's start with the Republican one. I think the Republican one, I think what you were probably seeing there mostly was, look at the wide variety of people we're bringing in. That was one of the big messages, sort of the unspoken. It was spoken by the individuals who spoke, but from the rap star woman, I can't remember her name, but she, former Democrat, who just kind of went, okay, I'm just going to vote for the guy who made my life better. Then you had the woman whose son was murdered or stabbed. You had the Teamsters guy. You had a lot of people from a lot of different constituencies where you would never have seen them before. And I think that that's really the message. I think we're seeing it now with the outreach to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I'll tell you who's going to really be helpful is Shanahan. His VP, she's already spending her money on messaging, doing ads. I don't know if you've seen the ad that she just did, but I texted it to some friends of mine and I said, that's the problem with ticking off a woman with $1 billion. Because she's like, all right, I'll just drop $50,000 on a new video that'll just make you guys look like fools. So I think that the message of the Republicans right now is our country's in trouble. We need to put together a broad coalition. We're not going to be hardcore specific about our particular. I mean, we've got a general way we're going. You've already hired me once. You know what I do. We're going in this direction, but I'm going to bring in some people because we got to save our country. To me, that's kind of the message right now that's coming out of the Trump campaign. And I felt like it was kind of the one. I heard Harold Ford Jr., who's Democrat out of Memphis, very big political family, served in the House. He's now on the 5 every now and then on Fox News. And he said, I've been to, I can't remember what he said, 19 conventions or something like that in my life. And during the Republican convention, he said, this is one of the best, if not the best conventions I've ever been to. He liked it. He liked the vibe. He liked the message. He liked all those kinds of things. Okay, now Democrats. What are the Democrats saying? And I'm going to try to be fair and not biased because I don't like what they do. But let me say, if I had to draw a conclusion as sort of a middle of the road person, and by the way, the only people that matter at this point are, and I did an article and a video on this the other day, 90 to 95% of the people have already decided who they're voting for. You've got a whole group of people. It wouldn't matter if Kamala Harris came out with horns on her head. They're voting for her. Trump could get indicted another 6 times and convicted another 12 times. they're not going to not vote for the guy. So the vast majority of people have already decided. Now you've got this little sliver. I will call it 5 to 10% of the people. And these are people who don't have core values per se, or core political values. They're not, I'm abortion all the time, or I'm never abortion type. They're not partisan in philosophically or politically. They're far more pragmatic. Things like your tone and the way you talk matter to them, which is where Trump comes down a little bit, because, they're like, oh, he sends mean tweets and I don't want to listen to say mean things anymore, so I'm not going to vote for him. But then they look at Kamala and they're like, she looks like the mom who shows up at the backyard play date with her Stanley thing, but it doesn't have water in it. It has like a pint of vino in it. Like she's the one that she's just cackling all the time. They're like, she doesn't appear to be a serious person. Right. So you've got these both pros and cons to the way we message. But I think the Democrats were trying to say, they didn't talk much about policy. I think what they were trying to communicate was, number one, they chose the term joy, right? Look how much fun we're having. Are you tired of that monster Trump who's just arguing with people all the time and calling people, look at us, we're fun, we're happy, we're joyful. In fact, look at all the popular people who support us. We've got this star and we've got that star and we've got this star. Look at us. We're the fun group of people. And to me, that is what they're going to be doing, I think, for the next, until the election, because they can't really say what she believes and what she has always stood for, because what she believes and what she has always stood for, not many people in America are down for that. Unrealized capital gains is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard about, especially if you're trying to get elected. Hey, I'll tell you what, I know your house is worth $600 now, but if it goes to $700, you're going to have to come up with $25,000 to give us the 25% of that $100,000 that went up. Oh, okay, I guess I'll take out a second mortgage. Then they take out a second mortgage to pay the 25% of the unrealized capital gains. Well, then your market goes into a downturn and now your house isn't worth $700 anymore. Now it's worth $550. So you've shelled out 25 grand monthly on your second mortgage, and your house is now worth $50,000 less than when you bought it. It's insanity. So they're going to keep it very high level. Look at us. We're happy and we're not the bad guy. That really is their message. We're not the bad guy.
Do you think, Chris, let's talk about that 5 to 10%. So last week, RFK decided to do what he did. What happens? What do you think goes through the mind of the 5 to 10% that's still trying, like you said, they don't have these strong core political values, but they're just kind of probably going to go with their gut feeling at some point?
I think a couple things. Number one, I think that the way that those guys did it was done really well, especially coming from the voice of Kennedy and Shanahan, who both said, look, I don't agree with him on anything. I've never voted for him in the past. I've never voted for him. Shanahan is extraordinarily articulate. I've been watching some videos with her where she was talking to an African-American radio guy, and she was like, you wouldn't believe the things I've learned just since we endorsed him. Like, I used to think MAGA was the kind of people that would show up on your doorstep, knock on the door, come in and raid you and take all your stuff. And like, that was the message. And that's the message that the Democrats have been saying for so long. So I think the fact that they came in and said they were honest, we don't agree with this guy on everything, but the important things, we're on the same page. And these are the kinds of things that the Democrats are going to destroy our country with if we go that direction. So
interesting.
The way they did it, I think, was important because it allows their followers to not view them with suspicion and cynicism. They were honest. We don't agree with this guy on everything, but the important things we agree upon. And this one time, maybe it's just a one-off. We all need to get behind Trump. He has said, he'd like our input and all these kinds of things. So I think it was done very well. I think you have some people that are going to probably lean more towards Trump. I think you have some of the Kennedy people who are going to lean more towards Kamala. And so
here's what I find interesting, Chris, and you touched on it a little bit here. We're talking about clarity of message. We're talking about how it applies to decision making from the people that are making the choices. And you have one camp that in this case, you have a strategy that says, please don't look at my track record. Just go by what I'm saying now.
Yep.
And that seems to be working to a degree with a base.
Yep.
Then you have another camp that says, please do look at my track record. So one says, please don't look at my track record. Please do look at my track record. And that is the strategy for that camp to go forward. And both camps certainly are doing everything they can. I'm excited about the RFK scenario because I do think it's going to impact the 5 to 10% and kind of that, this is the thing we needed to go ahead and make our decision type feeling.
Yeah. I think Democrats have two hopes. Number one, they just hope that people hate Donald Trump enough.
Yeah.
Right. I think the second thing that is, we have to be honest about this. If you were going to make a movie and you were going to choose a woman to play the part of a woman running for president, you would choose Kamala Harris. She is good at this. When they keep her on message, when she gets by herself and she's just yapping, that's when she falls apart. That's when she starts laughing. That's when she goes word salad. But when she's given a speech, she holds herself properly. She's commanding. She knows not to go into the big cackle. She doesn't do the big cackle, but she releases a little bit of humor and she can laugh a little, but she knows when to be stern. They've written her some amazing lines. She's about as good as you get. She's far more winsome than Hillary Clinton was on the stump. And that's the thing we should be terrified about. And frankly, it's why they are keeping a very, very, very tight leash on her. They do not want her off the teleprompter for 60 something more days.
I get it. And so it's going to come down to who is developed the message that's so clear that it moves people. Yeah. And that's where it's going to end up. Now, let's wrap up our interview. It's funny, you kicked off telling your story about the 3 different main kind of buckets of your life, the pastoral bucket, the speaking bucket, the political bucket. So we're going to talk about all 3 of them. And we're going to come back to that pastoral bucket here for a second, because you've just released your 25th, or it's coming out. You've just finished completing your 25th book titled The Coming American Revival. Tell us about the book. Tell us what inspired the book, and maybe give us that short idea of what it is, because I'm sure many people are going to want to grab a copy.
Yeah. In fact, The Coming American Revival, I had to write the description to go up on Amazon, and I wrote, it's not a promise or a prediction, but it is a declaration of faith. I believe that God wants to bring revival. I always believe God wants to bring revival. Revival literally means, and Ryan, you've heard me give speeches enough. You know I love words, right? I love to break words down. Revival means live again. To live again, to come alive again. So revival is when Christians who are kind of just bored and they're not really happy and they're not, following God much, they come to life again. They realize that vibrancy. And so I believe that God wants to revive American Christians. I believe that one of the reasons we're in the problem that we have is because the church has lost its saltiness. We're supposed to be the salt and the light of the earth, and we haven't. And I don't think we really have for about 50 years. We've gotten fat and happy. We've enjoyed the wealth and the power that we have as Christians in America. We've not remained humble. We've not remained devoted. We've become much like the world. If you take out Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights and you look at what the average Christian does with their time versus what the average non-Christian does with their time, it looks almost exactly alike. We watch the same movies, we listen to the same songs, we go to the same events, we do the same things other than Sunday morning and Wednesday night. And that's not the way we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be set apart. And so this is a call to Americans. It basically revolves around 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verses 14 and following, where it talks about, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, repent of their sins, turn towards my face, it's a if then. Then it says, then will I heal their land. So revival is an if then. an if then, right? If you do this, then I will do this. And I think the problem is one of the reasons we've not seen revival is because the if has never been fulfilled. We haven't humbled ourselves. We haven't prayed. You can throw a barbecue at your church and get 500 people out. You throw a prayer meeting and you get 5 people out. That's a problem. And so I was writing my 25th book, and it's called The Capitalist, which is now going to be my 26th book. The Capitalist is about a billionaire whose grandmother asks him to host a family reunion, and his sister brings her Ivy League educated art major to the family reunion. And of course, guess who she hates? She hates billionaires. So it's this idea of this uncle who's a billionaire spending, 4 days with his niece, his sister's daughter, and talking to her about what capitalism really is about. And in the middle of writing that book, I really felt like God just said, stop and write this other book. And I wrote that book, turned it in, and I've got some really big names who are endorsing this book, people who I'll send the book to, and they read it in the first 2 hours and send me the endorsement back. So I really like the fact that, it wasn't my idea, it was God's idea. And people are really responding to it because I think people realize we're in trouble. It's not like things are falling apart. The world kind of still looks and feels on a day-to-day basis the same. But I think people realize there's something going on here. And Ephesians chapter 6 says our battle's not against flesh and blood, but against the powers, rulers, principalities, authorities, and the heavenly realms. I think there's something otherworldly going on. And of course, we can't see the other world, and so we can't pour it in and out of a beaker. But I think most people who have any sort of spiritual sensitivity are saying, something's going on here.
Yeah. Chris, I'm looking forward to it. Now that book's coming out in November, but really what I think would be just smart for everybody to do, because you're going to let everybody know when it's
absolutely,
available. Yeah. You'll push out links. They probably should get on your email list. Tell everybody how they get connected to you in the best way possible.
Yeah, probably the best way is to go to Chris Widener Speaker on Facebook. That's one way. I'll be releasing the book that way. If you're political, follow me on Twitter at Chris Widener. If you're not political, you don't want to follow that account because that's really where I do all my politics. So if you're political, particularly if you're on the right side, you'll want to follow me there. But you can go to chriswidener.com or just check on Amazon. You can follow me on Amazon, and that'll be, if you go to chriswidener.com and click on store, it'll just take you to Amazon, show you everything I've ever written. But yeah, it comes out the week before the election. One thing that I really want people to do is buy one for yourself, but buy one for a pastor. Pastors really need this book. I was a pastor for 14 years, and it's a tough job. It's low pay. You've got everybody's burdens on you. You live in a fishbowl. When another kid gets in trouble at school, well, that's just the kid getting in trouble at school. But when your kid burps, all of a sudden the world's falling apart because it's the pastor's kid. And pastors need our support. They get a lot of pressure about what they say and don't say. And we need our pastors to be bold. We need them to be courageous, and we need them to stand on the word of God. And so buy one for yourself. Yes. Buy some for a pastor or your church staff. We need them to be reading this book because they're the ones that are going to lead us in revival.
Chris, thanks for being on the show, my friend. Everybody get connected with Chris. Grab a copy of the book as soon as it comes out. Go back and grab a copy of a few of his other books. You're going to enjoy them all. And again, thanks for everything you're doing, Chris.
Thank you, Ryan.